There's all sorts of great traditions and stories around the holiday season, and this, the Polar Express, is a big one for train guys especially. And there's all sorts of models for it, and Lionel, this is kind of their bread and butter. And a lot of the reason people associate trains with the holidays is probably because of stuff like this. Now, the Polar Express that you see here is a Lionchief version. This is kind of the newest version. It's got Bluetooth on it. I didn't pick it up new though. This is a secondhand set, and I'll show you some things about that in a second. But first, I want to tell you what I'm doing, because this is the first of a two-part series that I'm going to make about transforming this Polar Express, not just repairing it from its current state that I got it in, because it was a little beat up, but also taking a bit of a page out of Sid's Trains books and making this more of a accurate version. But it's not movie accurate, because that's not what I grew up with. I grew up with the book from Chris Van Allsberg. This was released in 1985, and it's a much more simple story. Now, obviously, you've got to flesh some things out in a movie. I mean, How the Grinch Stole Christmas could have never been a movie if they didn't draw things out. And I get that to an extent. And it's not that I don't like the movie, but I grew up on the book, and my son, who's 4, he's seen some clips from the movie, but he loves reading this book. So I thought it would be special to make this a bit of a Christmas surprise for him. Don't spoil it for him. Please don't spoil it for him. But instead of making this movie accurate, I'm going to try and take a little inspiration from our friend Chris. A different Chris.
This is the Polar Express. Ooh. Oh, geez. Yeah, so when I picked up this engine used, there was evidence of a pretty hard hit on the nose. So the top of this little, I forget what they call this little bump that's ahead of the smokestack, had these nice gouges in it. The faceplate and the paint up here was all messed up. And this headlight was actually reported in the Facebook Marketplace listing for this train as broken. Yeah, I've never seen an LED burn out in less than a year, so I was skeptical. And as you can see, it's still very much there, and when it's powered on, it actually lights up. What had happened was the impact was so hard on this guy that this actually got disconnected from the hot glue that was expertly holding it in, and it was just hanging out in the smoke box, shining through the smokestack up here. So thankfully I didn't have to do any rewiring, but this guy's injuries kind of inspired me to make a book accurate version, because the bell was kind of mangled on the front of this guy. The book version didn't actually have a bell on the front anyway, so that's kind of all right with me. So first, some things that are happening with the engine. I'm kind of glad that this thing took a bit of a hit because I had to remove it anyways. On these Lionchief models, this is just one little pin that's holding in this piece up here, and this isn't present on the book version nor the movie version. So I took it out, and we're going to fill that in and smooth it over and repaint it. And then for the face on this, the light is definitely more recessed, so I've chopped that off. It looks a little crude right now because we're kind of midway through me fixing this thing up. I've removed these little signal lights up here and taken out the bell. It was bent and broken anyways. But the light on the front is much shorter on the Polar Express than the actual Lionchief and the scale version have. So I've chopped that off, and I've just electrical taped it just so you can kind of get the idea here, but it's going to look much more polished than this. Another thing that I'm hoping to try out is actually to remove all of these weird figures and such from the windows. I actually rather just prefer the regular windows because it looks more like it does in the book. You just see the lights shining through. The silhouettes don't mean a whole lot to someone who's read the book because these toys and marionettes and this annoying kid from Dexter's Laboratory and the weird waiters and such with all the same CGI faces, none of that was in the book. So I'm just thinking of sanding them off, and disassembling these isn't the hardest. These are actually kind of clever. There's no screws holding the top on from the bottom. There's little places here and here that you'll notice the windows are slightly misshapen from the rest, and those are essentially clips that are holding these in, and the whole thing just pops off and lifts up and out. So if I sand off all of those, then you'll just have nice white windows, and it should look a lot more book accurate. The observation car on this was in pretty rough shape because this whole back piece here
was all kind of splintered up and broken. Luckily, the top and bottom railings and the main piece underneath were still intact, but this whole thing would not hang on to the back of the car because the clips were all broken. So I've done some work to repair this and get it back into good shape.
Well, you coming?
So obviously there's a little more work to be done on this set, and I just wanted to fill you guys in on what we're doing. Hoping to have this done in time for Christmas decorations going up around the house, so just after Thanksgiving. So stay tuned for part 2. We'll have this thing completed, and you'll be able to see my son's reaction to his very own Polar Express. So thanks so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, comment, all that fun stuff that smarter YouTubers than I tell you to do. See you next time.
All aboard! This is the Polar Express.